G'day guys, Peter from Team Low Range 4x4 here. Yes, let's talk a little bit about when to use your four-wheel drive. Now, I'm pretty sure just those words are going to cause drama in the comments. Of course, everyone's got their own opinion on when to use four-wheel drive. Of course, a lot of us are probably afraid to admit that we're not 100% sure when to use high range versus low range versus any four-wheel drive at all. Not even going to get into lockers and stuff, since personally I don't own them. But really at the end of the day, I'm just going to run through a couple of things that I think, just my personal opinion of course, personal opinion, of when I think it's appropriate to use four-wheel drive.
Christ, amazing.
When do you engage four-wheel drive? Do you engage it when you're on a track and you see an obstacle? Do you engage it when you think you're probably going to have a hard time on loose surface of some description? Do you engage it only when you find that you can't make it somewhere in two-wheel drive? These are scenarios that I'm sure a lot of people have tried, and maybe they work for you, maybe they haven't been that great, because at the end of the day, if you select no four-wheel drive, let's say just two-wheel drive, and you find yourself in a bit of a sticky situation, probably too late. Recovery is your only option there. So when do I engage four-wheel drive? The moment you leave the tarmac. It's trackable surface, the moment. And the reason why is that you're moving on to a dirt, gravel, you're moving on to sand, you're moving on to whatever the surface may be, and you might not need four-wheel drive. No, but when that occasion happens, you might be just driving along on a gravel road, and suddenly oh no, slippery. Well, it's too late. I engage straight away, and then I don't have to worry. So I'm obviously in high range four-wheel drive. That would be the obvious choice. Low range straight off the bitumen, depends on the track, but I would say high range first off. Then you have to have the choice of when should I make the decision to move from high range to low range. Okay, let's attack a scenario together right now. So I'm going to pretend that I'm new to four-whole driving and my experience is a bit low, but I'm going to want to test the boundaries a little bit. So I've left it in two-wheel drive and I've approached this bog hole. So the first thing I should do is get out and check it. Now for time purposes I've already done this, but now I've got to make a selection. High range four-wheel drive to drive through it, or low range four-wheel drive to drive through it. Two-wheel drive to drive through it. Ugh. If you don't know, you don't know. I'd say most people would say, look, through bog holes, we go low range, second gear, or L2 in an automatic such as this. And then we give it constant momentum and we steer for the horizon, so to speak, and we make ourselves through it. So I'm going to try and attempt that now, and let's see if that logic works out for me. I've put it into low range. I'm in L2. I've aimed for roughly where the ruts are, not, because I don't want to get stuck in that. And let's get through this bog hole, shall we? And there we go. One bad thing about having a camera though, I've got to wait for the mud to subside so I can go back and get it. Yes. Good fun. Good fun indeed. Right, so we negotiated that pretty well. Not a problem at all. So, you might say to yourself, hey, you know what? I don't actually have that kind of terrain like bog holes and stuff that I normally drive through. Probably pretty gravelly, pretty like rocky, maybe shale, maybe some steep climbs, what gear should I use there? Should I use high range or should I use low range? Now, the answer to that question is controversial a little bit. Depends on how steep we're talking for climbing wise. If it looks pretty steep or you're unsure, and it's also obviously it has to be sort of loosey, sort of gravelly sort of tracks or rocks, then obviously high range is not your choice. Low range that, definitely low range that. Okay guys, so just once again, my personal opinion is once you leave the bitumen, high range four-wheel drive takes all the mystery out of loose gravel, anything that you're unexpected when you're traveling along. You don't have to think quick and slap it into four-wheel drive, or worst case scenario, find yourself in a recovery position. Step 2, basically, if you find yourself in an obstacle and you need to tackle it, assess it first properly, bog holes, steep climbs, whatever, and then choose the appropriate gear. I would suggest for those, of course, steep climbs, steep descents, of course, bog holes, and anything you're quite unsure of, as long as it's not really like, you know, not a bitumen surface, basically, I will go low range for that. And then, of course, speed is another thing. Always, you want a bit of momentum, but also you don't want to thrash it. Because if you're going through a bog hole, for example, like we did then, and you find a rock in the middle, you could do damage to your vehicle. We all want to avoid damage. As I said before, out here to have fun, enjoy it with our mates when we have the opportunity, and enjoy the bush. So, all right guys, I'm Peter from Team Low Range. Hopefully this has been a helpful video. Don't forget to subscribe, and of course, comment, and one of these, please. All right guys, I'll catch you on the tracks.